House to Home, presented by Remax Diamond Realty.
Oh my good friends Liz and Gina, who are still getting their desks together apparently, but despite organizational skills notwithstanding, they said they were inspired for this week's topic. Gina, you do not often use the word inspire very fleetingly and everything like that, so I can't wait to hear what you got for us this week.
Well, no, I'm inspired a lot by many, many people, but I don't often acknowledge it. So I'm acknowledging it today.
Okay, and you're very rarely inspired by public policy, but something we're going to talk about today has actually caused you to raise your eyebrows in a positive way.
Absolutely. I think this was spearheaded by Chris Felix with Century 21 Realty Management. So I just want to give him credit for that. But it was sponsored by Senator San Nicolas, Bill 168-37. And we're not bringing it up because, we support the concept of this bill. It's basically to allow a temporary business license so that a business looking to open, sometimes it takes months and months and months to get your business license. Like, especially for rental property, it could take quite a bit of time because with all the inspections and all the requirements that you have to go through, it could take a bit of time. So Chris Felix was promoting the idea that you can get a temporary business license and you have a year to get everything done. But in the meantime, you could be in operation. And I think that, so that's what inspired me, was the concept of this bill. And it inspired me as, what I'm hoping for is that the legislation, we brought this up before about building permits, how tremendously the process to get a building permit is, how do you put it, Liz, and be nice?
It's tedious. There's so many.
Tedious is way nicer than I was hoping for.
Remember, this is a family show, you two.
Cumbersome. It's cumbersome.
Cumbersome, tedious, meticulous. Yeah. Okay, and Liz, this is interesting because the proposed legislation, as I'm reading it right now, says conditional business licenses.
Yes.
So what is it conditioned on?
Well, today there was a public hearing that Dwayne held, and the Guam Association of Realtors showed up to testify on behalf of the bill that yes, we support it. It was supported by the Guam Association of Realtors. Gina showed up and also supported the bill. So in essence, we support the idea of this bill, but of course, there are other things that will have to be considered. So for example, if you're getting a rental license, the guardrails would have to be in place in terms of the inspection, but at least for some businesses, they can at least get the ball rolling, putting together their documentation. And if they get conditional approval, subject to whatever is put in place by Rev and Tax, and that would have to follow with also a timeline. During the hearing, they recommended that they request for a roundtable discussion to fine tune this so that there are guardrails put in place. So Rev and Tax will have to be included and a few others in that discussion. But I think the key element here is when you go to get a business license, you have to get, for example, for rentals, you're going to have to get Public Works, Fire Department. You have to go to Land Management. There's so many agencies you'd have to go to get the proper clearances. And if you're waiting for an inspection to ensure that your house is safe for rental, it would be subject to the schedule of time from the fire department and from Public Works.
And that's even if your paperwork is completely in order and absolutely blemish free. It could be perfect in every way, absolutely sublime, but you're on somebody else's schedule.
That's right. So we're subjected to somebody else's schedule. And then even if you get all the proper clearances and you go to one stop, although there is a representative for Rev and Tax there, they can't just print your license for you. You have to take your documentation all physically up to Rev and Tax to get them to print it. So one stop originally One Stop was a great concept because you could go and get everything done. But as time progressed, I think that changed. And you still have to do more running around to other entities to get the proper licensing in place.
So that's where the
Hopefully-
condition is. It's like you can actually begin to operate a business in good standing, but it's, there's still things that have to be cleared, but you can begin to operate.
Well, it sounded today from listening to some of the senators, they agree in the of the bill in concept but to ensure that there are policies and procedures in place so that the community's safety is considered depending on, inspections and certain things. But I think that could be accomplished with guidelines and time. I think the key here, timelines, because that has always been an issue trying to get proper permitting. It's the timelines involved to get it. And sometimes we've seen companies lose money because they can't get past a certain agency. I mean, we've seen that time and time again.
Opportunity is always calling, but opportunity also doesn't wait. Opportunity is very impatient.
That's right.
Okay, so
and Gina and I just have to say that Gina and I have been pretty vigilant now when bills come into play, that we're watching and reading. And even John, when this quarry bill came up, he found certain segments in the bill. There's segments in the bill sometimes that create another quagmire. It just creates more issues.
You're picking your words very carefully, which I really appreciate. Again, a family show.
You have to really read these bills as they come up, because sometimes another area within the permitting process or another area is added into the bill that would create more of a problem.
Okay, now Gina, I'm going to ask probably the world's most obvious question. These conditional business licenses, I'm sure this is good for local people that want to get up and running and satisfy the needs of the military dependents, those that are already here and the ones that are coming, because then we can have a much faster turnaround time.
Yeah, I mean, allowing businesses to open at a faster scale doesn't mean necessarily that you're sidestepping the rules and the regulation. You're just like in the private sector, when we're given a task, we're given a timeline, complete the task in this timeline and you'll get paid for your work. And I think this bill just pretty much is holding the government accountable. Hey, these businesses want to start paying their taxes and in operation. This bill is not designed to sidestep the process or sidestep the regulations. I think it basically is just trying to motivate everybody to get it done in a quicker amount of time. It does say that you have 1 year under a conditional permit, which I'm not sure how I feel about 1 year, because I'm hoping that this bill will motivate the agencies to move a little quicker. The only reason this bill is even being discussed right now is because it takes so long to get it. And I think that was one of the compromises, is that, okay, you know what? It takes the agencies a little bit longer than we'd like. So let's let the businesses operate and then have a whole year to get your license. What I'm concerned about, and we've gone through business license processes before, and there are occasions where what the law says and the person who is reading that law and giving you their interpretation of what the law demands of you as a business, like how I read it and how you read it as the agency, aren't connecting. And we've had in some instances where the agency says, well, that's how I'm reading it. Follow it the way I'm telling you, or I'm not going to sign off on your documents. And what happens is, if that particular item is too expensive to do, and I'm already up and running, my problem is, what do I do? Do I shut down then at that point? I've been running for 3 months or 4 months. Do I close down my business because what you're asking of me is not affordable? It's not within my budget. And do I shut down? So I'm hoping also that this bill addresses the idea that maybe it shouldn't be an individual decision when it comes to some of the interpretations of these rules and regs, that it be more streamlined, that you can really put your money on it. Yeah, I'm going to follow it to the letter. And there's not an individual who can miss it or give me a different interpretation of the law. It's going to be read this way, no matter who I'm in front of. And that way it gives the businesses a little bit more, a little less worry. I'm going to open. I already spent all my money. Everything is done. I'm going to go through the process, but I'm okay. But what I'm really looking for is I'm looking for this type of bill for building permits. We were at a public hearing and Tom Fisher asked a question, how is this going to impact building permits? And how does this particular bill, this was about the septic tanks, will this help with building permits? And we explained to him, this is the building permit process is an animal, a completely different animal, which has nothing to do with the septic tanks. The septic tanks is one issue, and getting a building permit for housing or construction here in Guam is a completely different animal that I really believe every single senator at the legislature may want to invest some time and attention to this because, the military, we talked about that, or we looked at that video where the military wants to develop a joint venture project where they will build housing and non-military members will be using those houses as well. And I think that's in response to the fact that we have limited housing on Guam, which makes the rental prices here very expensive. So like the Dodia school concept that came into play because we had a poor educational system on Guam, Dodia set up their own to take care of their own military families, and rightly so, they needed to do that. Mm-hmm. They're addressing another problem in advance. They're saying, hey, wait a minute, housing here is very expensive. Our military support people that are not military themselves are having a hard time finding reasonable, affordable housing. So they're identifying that and they're trying to address it. I'm suggesting that the legislature take a step back and look at what's happening here. Our rental prices are really, really high. And let's not blame the military. Let's just say we have a housing shortage. And what do we need to do to identify that problem, fix it, and make it so that it's more affordable for local community people that are not associated with the military? And that's to build. It's to encourage building. It's to promote the concept of building. It's to encourage developers. It's to promote the idea that developers can come here and yes, make money, because you're not going to get people to want to come here and build houses if the concept is they won't make money. Just come and build because we need it.
And
won't
Liz,
work.
Let's go ahead and wrap with you because I know you've talked about this before. Is even hypothetically there may be somebody from off island, a developer, a contractor who may say, I see Guam as a land of opportunity. I'm going to go ahead and set up all these housing projects, and then it all gets tied up, and you're basically, again, you're on somebody else's timeline, and they're going to say, you know what, it ain't worth it. I'm going to take my money and my energy elsewhere.
We have seen that happen. We have seen that happen. That people have come and found that it's a task to try to get through the permitting process, and then they would just pick up and go. And some that have already invested monies stayed for a while and lost quite a bit of monies that they just said, I give up, I'm done. I mean, I just want to point out there's a developer, because of the archaeological issues, spent over $30,000 3 years into the process and nothing. And now at least, hopefully there's a remedy that he could go to at the AG's office. And you
don't get to recoup that money. You chalk that up as a loss.
It's lost.
Or totally the time, Jace.
3 years, 4 years invested and nothing.
Bottom line,
you can make more money. You can't make more time.
And this seems like it's a good idea, and it's obviously got Liz and Gina's stamp of approval. So we'll see where this goes. It looks like it's off to a good start, though. So, ladies, thank you as always.
Okay. Thanks, Jason.
House to Home, presented by RE/MAX Diamond Realty.